Rothman, and I am live from Huntington Beach Pier in Huntington Beach, California. Welcome to this day, Wednesday. In the United States, some of us refer to it as Hump Day, which means it's the middle of the work week. And I just about wrapped up my normal, usual early AM spiritual practice, and I wanted to touch base on a few things that have come to my mind as I have completed my morning rituals out here. Welcome to those of you that may be joining me live this morning. If you hear something that resonates with you, feel free to hit like, hit love button, or ask a question or a comment. While I'm waiting for more of you to join me this morning, I wanted to just give a quick update regarding a health update that I have been dealing with. Went for more testing earlier this week at Cedar Sinai, and I got back preliminary results, and everything looks great. The issues that were there in my past test results or studies back in October of 17 are status quo, meaning that there is no more further damage or clotting in any of my arteries, and in fact it looks as though we may actually be seeing a reduction. My aorta, which back in October they said was 25% occluded. Good morning, John, thanks for joining me. Let's see who else we got there. Vikram. Oh, by the way, let me know. Good morning, Annette Lamos. Wherever you're coming in from, why don't you do me a big favor and comment. Let me know what city or state or country you're joining me live from. But in any event, my aorta, which had about 25% occluded back in October, they say now in the report is down to 20%. So that's good news. And then my stents in my heart, all three of those are clear. The blood is flowing freely, as well as in my left stent for my left leg. So the only issue that they've really hit on is that my bypass is 100% occluded in my right leg, but I am good to go. I have opted out of surgery. I am not going to go through that process again. I will continue to allow my body, with the grace of God and His help, to heal naturally. And so you hear a noise. It's a garbage truck going by in the pier. I'm also right at the head of the pier where the waves are crashing in. Good morning, John Fiore. John's going to be joining my show Friday evening at 6 p.m. California time, Pacific Standard Time, Real Men, Real Talk Raw. We're going to probably be touching on for sure his recovery and hitting his rock bottom earlier this year, and what he has done to heal his mind, body, and soul. I wanted to touch on a few things. One is regarding limitations and acceptance. And where I'm going with that is when I had all my tests done earlier this week, they put a bunch of different pharmaceuticals within my body, and it really affected me the next day, which was yesterday. I had a pretty full schedule planned. I had a date with one of my old friends and colleagues from at least 25 years ago. We were going to meet up and do a walk at the beach early morning. And then I had a dinner planned with Christine O'Connell, who's one of the Genius community members like myself, part of the Jay Shetty mentoring and coaching group. And at some point early morning, I knew that I was absolutely struggling. My body felt horrible. It felt like I was hungover. I didn't sleep well the night before, probably because of all the toxins from the pharmaceuticals that they gave to me intravenously to do the studies. And so I was able to go to acceptance that at least just for yesterday, I was right where I was at. I accepted my limitations, and I postponed my get-togethers. And although I really wanted to, of course, push through and get on with my day, I also recognized that just for the moment, I was not up to it. And I listened to my body and not my head, and was willing to accept that just for yesterday, I was going to accept my limitations and just be gentle with myself and do a different level of self-care. And so that's what I did, and it didn't matter, although I didn't want to, let's say, disappoint my friends. I was okay with whether they accepted it or not, because it's not what mattered. What mattered is that I needed to take care of me, and that's what I did, and it felt right, and I trusted my intuition. And so that's one of the things I wanted to touch on. Victor Bravo, good morning. Victor, Phyllis, thanks for joining me. Victor, you owe me a call. Give me a call today, buddy. I'm up to it. John is at the Atlantic Ocean. Beautiful. We are sea to shining sea. John is on the east. He's in the Atlantic right now, and I am on the Pacific coast of California, the United States. John's going to be joining me Friday night. Real Men, Real Talk, Raw. Now, one of the things that popped up this morning, Simon Gonzalez, I believe, is on. Welcome. Simon's joining me from Tulsa, Oklahoma this morning. I wanted to touch base a little bit, talk about addictions. And because John's posted something this morning on addictions, and he's a holistic healer. He is a certified EFT healer. If you don't know what EFT is, John can share it. He'll be talking a little bit about that Friday evening on our show. But you also could Google it or reach out to John Fiore through my page or look him up on Facebook. But I wanted to touch on what John brought up this morning on addiction. He was talking about recovery, and I'm going to paraphrase you, John, but you said something to the effect like, in order for us to get on the other side of addiction, we have to be willing to really look at the root cause of addiction. And so there began our conversation back and forth. And I'm going to speak from my own experience because I have put out here many times over the past 34 months or so that I had multiple addictions in my life. I'll share them again for those of you that may be relatively new to the community. But I was a workaholic. I was a codependent. I smoked. I ate too much. I had a food addiction, and I was a sex addict. I think that pretty much covers my addictions, and that I had. And originally, I had to go through recovery. And what I've learned over my healing journey of my mind, body, and soul is that here's my truth. Recovery and the recovery programs, whether they be the 12-step programs, whether they be residential, inpatient, outpatient, treatment centers, they all do a job, and their job is, they're all based on the foundation of Bill W., who started the program for Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's all based on recovery and stabilizing so that you don't continue to use whatever your addiction is. And that's called recovery. And what happens is that when we're in a 12-step program, we work on the 12 steps and we finish them, and then a lot of people go back and they continue to repeat the 12 steps. And the challenge that I see with that from my own personal experience is that we keep repeating the same steps, and we may have some moments of new clarity and understanding about our recovery and our behaviors when we were out using whatever that drug of choice may be. However, I personally was not able to continue to grow and learn. I felt like I hit many plateaus along my growing process in recovery. And eventually, I reached the point where I needed more. Recovery was good. It got me stable in all of my addictions. But what I needed was to continue the process of healing. And there's where I think we kind of miss an opportunity. I believe, from my own experience, that 12-step programs need a second set, perhaps of 12, which is going from stabilizing and recovery to healing our soul. And if we don't get to the root cause of what brought us to our addiction in the first place, we're what some people refer to as white knuckling it. And so now we're sober, we're managing our addiction, but we're not managing those feelings of being irritable, discontent, frustrated, angry, resentful, guilt-ridden, shame-ridden, blame-ridden. All those negative emotions are kind of just under the surface. And so for me, I needed to understand, and came to the understanding that I needed more than the initial 12 steps. Because what for me was like I just kept showing up and hearing the same stories, people bringing the same mess from when they were using whatever their drug of choice may be, whether it be alcohol, drugs, whether it be food, cigarettes, sex, gambling, shopping, hoarding, whatever the addiction is. If we don't dive in deep to the root cause of the addiction, we're just masking it with a Band-Aid. Recovery is a stepping stone. It shouldn't be the final step. The final step really is the healing process. And so I appreciate those of you that are sharing, that are on live with me right now. Simon says the awareness of what was is always popping up, and it can take you to the pain. Well, exactly, Simon. For me, I needed to walk through the pain, because what I found is that when I feel and I reveal, I heal. And that doesn't happen unless I start to share my truths, all of my truths. Either the ones that are the most painful. Behind the pain is the discovery, and behind the discovery is awareness, and behind the awareness becomes acceptance. You know, one of the things that I've experienced is where I live, I overlook a car wash, and unfortunately that's my view from my balcony. And I see every single day, 7 days a week, the cars come flowing in, come streaming in. People invest. Every week they have memberships and they get their car washed, and then it's a self-serve vacuuming, and I don't know, people spend anywhere from probably 30 minutes to an hour every week or so cleaning their car. And then we know that about every 3,000 miles or a little bit longer if you go synthetic, you got to go in for an oil change. And so we do a really great job, most of us, of maintaining our car and taking care of our cars. We don't put that same focus and effort and energy into taking care of ourselves. And that's a whole other topic in itself. But that's my thoughts on recovery. I'm all for recovery. I mean, without recovery, we're in our disease, and we potentially either end up in prisons, institutions, or death. And relationships totally broken along the way. I also know that the addiction industry and rehab industry today is, as of 2017, was pushing over $35 billion just in the rehab business. And what I also know is, as of 2016, statistics show that the amount of people that remain sober at the 5-year mark that have gone through a treatment center inpatient is roughly 21%. And those that only go to an outpatient, that statistic drops to 18%. And here's what I also know. These statistics are based on people that have gone through these programs, and they ask them if they're sober or not. And we also know that when we're not sober, or when we are using whatever our drug of choice is, we may most likely not be very honest with ourselves and others. And so I sense that those statistics are skewed and they're not 100% accurate, but it's the best that the industry can do. When I look at a 21% success rate after 5 years of having gone through a treatment center that can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars, depending on how many times you've rolled in and out of rehab treatment, it's significant. And only have a 18 or 21% success rate. My personal feeling on this is that there's something wrong with the system. The system is not figured out. The industry has not figured out that being in recovery isn't enough. And I'm going to give one last metaphor for what I refer to as recovery. When we go in for surgery and we come out of the surgery, the procedure, we're put in an ICU unit, intensive care unit, and that's what they refer to as recovery. And then we come out of recovery, we come out of ICU, and they put us in in a room, a regular room where we're not as monitored as intensely monitored, and then we get eventually released from the hospital, usually within hours, if not a day or so at most. And many times we're released in the same day as an outpatient. And then we go home and we recover from the surgery, right? And then what happens? Our body begins to heal. We go from recovery to healing. Yet we don't look at recovery from addictions the same way. We continue to refer when we are sober as being in recovery. And my question is, when do we graduate? When do we up-level? When do we accept the fact that we have recovered and we now need to dig down deep and dive in to do the inner work, to look at the root causes of the addictions so that we can transition from recovery to healing? There's the billion-dollar question I have. And I'm coming from a space of just awareness for myself. I was in recovery for all of my addictions that I had. But I stand here today and I can say that I am no longer in recovery. I am healed, and I continue the healing process to continue to heal my mind, my body, and my soul. And there's where the true success comes in, is when we are willing to do the hard work. The hard work is when we're willing to go deep in and work on ourselves so that we no longer have to live in the internal bondage of recovery, but we can transition from recovery to healing. And when we heal our minds, our bodies, and our souls, which is really what was where the root cause of addictions come in from the first place, we go from darkness and bondage to lightness within. And then we can have a life filled with beautiful inner peace, inner joy, contentment, gratitude, serenity, love for ourselves, and hopefully eventually love for others. And so I want to thank those of you that joined me this morning, that part of my healing process, that joined me live. If you couldn't catch the live because you're at the office, you're at work, wherever you may be, you can always catch me on a replay. Continue to share your comments, share your questions, hit like and love even on a replay. Let's keep this conversation going. If you are in recovery, if you have an addiction that you're working on or have worked on, I'd love to hear your perspective on your healing journey, on your recovery journey. Again, I speak from my own experience of having had to walk through multiple addictions and transition from recovery to the healing process. It's a beautiful thing. I encourage you to consider it. You don't have to do this alone. There are people out there that can be your mentors, that can be your coaches, that understand there is so much more to the addiction process than just recovery, that we can heal. We just have to be willing. We have to be willing to be brutally honest with ourselves and perhaps with somebody else. Mary Kelly, I love you too. Have a beautiful day wherever you may be today. It is Wednesday. It may be Thursday, depending on what part of the world you're coming from. Have a beautiful day. I invite you to do some self-care today. Take care of yourself. When we take care of ourselves, we have more to give to others. Enjoy, and I'll check in next time. Take care. Love you too, John. See you Friday night, 9 p.m. East Coast time. Real Men, Real Talk, Raw. Have a beautiful day.